Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. And today, we are going to still be discussing the threat for severe weather into the mid to latter parts of this coming week. But before we get started, please be sure to do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications. Share this with friends and family and on social media. Follow my social medias, including my Twitch and my Twitter. And then go down and join my Discord. We're going to have a movie night tonight. We're going to be watching Twister. So if you guys want to watch Twister, it'll be ready by 9 o'clock Eastern. So please join my Discord server and have a fun time. Anyways, get right into the video. Here's the convective outlook. We look at it every single video, the Storm Prediction Center. And look at this. And look at this. Magnets. We got a 15% chance for severe weather on Wednesday, the 7th. And isn't that around the time in which I was mentioning before in my previous two videos when we can get some severe weather? Really interesting. We're going to have to continue to watch this very, very closely. But as time goes along, models can change, as I mentioned. But it's right over the area in which I said there would be severe weather. So I know there are some people in the chat, in the comments that were saying there's no way there's going to be any severe weather in this Ozarks. You need to change your forecast. I'm not changing my forecast. My forecast, in my opinion, is somewhat correct. And the Storm Prediction Center agrees. Look at this. 15% over much of Arkansas into eastern parts of Oklahoma, southern parts of Missouri, down into the western parts of Tennessee, and northern parts of Mississippi. So that's something that we really need to monitor heavily. By the way, the next 2 days, there isn't really a whole lot happening. I mean, if we go to the day 3 outlook, this is the only thing that they have up here. And they say that there's going to be some severe weather up into places like Minnesota and Wisconsin. So that's really not going to be all too serious, in my honest opinion, up there. So I think we're all good until, until we get to Wednesday and Thursday. Because Wednesday and Thursday, I know I said the 9th would have severe weather for the Deep South. I'm sorry. I meant the 8th. The 8th is looking really interesting. I'm not going to lie. To show you all what I mean, let's take a look at the models here. First things first, we're going to take a look at the... let's just take a look at reflectivity, precip type. So, going through here, this is Monday. We still don't have a lot, except for some general thunderstorms across the Midwest here. But this is Tuesday, and there's a long band of thunderstorms that go from the Midwest all the way down into the Central Plains. And that's just some general thunderstorms, maybe some severe storms. Here's your risk for Wednesday. All right, this is Wednesday morning moving into Wednesday evening. Your low pressure system spins out. You have the chance for some severe storms across the board here. This is only 18Z, which is 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock Central, and then it moves through here. This is now 4 o'clock Central, where thunderstorms continue to move across Arkansas, and boom, Thursday. So that's your threat mainly for Arkansas right here. As this continues to move on through, here's Thursday. You have your long line of storms, and more storms form off to the south in Dixie, in the Deep South, and more storms can push off into places like Alabama again, Mississippi again, Georgia again, Tennessee again. It's really unfortunate that they're not getting too much of a break, but you're just getting more severe storms again. And then on Friday, some severe weather will linger in places like Jacksonville. So if you know people who live over there, people need to monitor this one. And then even if you just play this one out, there isn't really a whole lot. There isn't really a whole lot until the true middle part of April. There's supposed to be some cyclone genesis here over the Rockies, which is not really anything new, but doesn't seem to be a whole lot after this event here. All right, let's take a look at the Euro model. And they've got a similar taste as to what's happening right now. We'll play this one out here. And this is now Tuesday. There's your low pressure system that pushes on through. And here's your severe weather for Wednesday. Look at this. Long band of storms that extend into Arkansas. This is your severe weather threat here for Wednesday. And then Thursday, this is pretty interesting as well because the Euro actually agrees that there's some decent amounts, there's a decent environment down there. Let's actually start comparing severe weather stuff. So Cape, in that general vicinity, there is some decent amounts in the area. So like Louisiana, there's some 2,000 to 2,500 joules per kilogram in that area. And Mississippi and Alabama, there's 1,500 to 1,800 joules per kilogram in some of these vicinities. There's actually some areas that get larger amounts of Cape. As a matter of fact, there's some areas in near the border of Louisiana and Mississippi that actually get up to 2,500 joules per kilogram. So there's decent amount of energy here according to the Euro. The GFS is a bit more conservative in this vicinity. As soon as I say that and increase it, it just immediately blows up, so never mind. But around that time frame, the GFS was a bit more conservative until it gets to the latter parts of the day, which would be around 4 o'clock Central, and that's when Cape could be an upwards of almost 2,800 joules per kilogram, which is a very much so large amount to allow strong thunderstorms to develop potentially. But you don't just need energy. You don't just need Cape, convective available potential energy, which, by the way, if I didn't explain what Cape was, Cape is just the buoyant force in the atmosphere between warm air rising and cold air sinking. I said between, Lamau. Not what I wanted to say. Between warm air rising and cold air sinking. So, hopefully you get that one. Actually, I want to check the dew points real quickly. And dews are in the 60s to 70s, so that's not all too bad. Anyways, you need wind shear as well. And if you want decent wind shear, you want 500 millibar wind shear to be somewhat good, somewhat decent. You want it over 45 knots, and there are some areas that are around 50 knots, maybe even to 60 knots. So there is wind shear here. I saw some people in my comments section saying that there is no wind shear. Look again, because there's some decent wind shear. And as a matter of fact, I just want to remind you all real quickly that El Reno was had 45 knots of wind shear at 500 millibars, and it turned out to be one of the strongest tornadoes ever recorded. So I just want to let you all know that ahead of time, so that you can consider yourselves to be well, just consider your options, more or less. But your wind shear here across the board, you can see that it's not bad. You actually have around 45 to 50, maybe even 55 knots of wind shear within this vicinity. This is on Thursday, so it's still relatively far out. Not as strong as what it is on Wednesday, though. I mean, look at this. Wednesday, the wind shear actually amplifies itself. In some areas, it's actually 50 to almost 60 knots of wind shear. Almost a 65 in some areas. So something to keep in mind here, particularly in this area here for Wednesday. They already issued a 15% for that general vicinity, and I really do agree with all of that. Yeah, let's take a look at the Euro's version of the wind shear here. Be able to determine as to what all is happening. I do not want to take a look at this 6Z run. There you go. So here is the Euro showing the wind shear here on Wednesday, and they're actually showing that the wind shear doesn't go as high up as Missouri. It actually stays relatively modest down here, more or less modest around Arkansas, um, but still 60 to 65 knots of wind shear in that general vicinity is still pretty intense. You can still get some severe storms off of that. Some could be strong, but it's pretty hard to say that right now until I actually see some soundings. And I haven't seen soundings since last night, so we might as well dissect those later on in the video. But wind shear still looks to be pretty good for right now. And then as we move into Thursday, wind shear actually seems to be about the same, actually. Yeah, the GFS might be a little bit more conservative, but the Euro and the GFS actually are agreeing that the wind shear is about the same strength heading over the deep south in the Ohio River Valley. So at least we have some sort of consistency with all that. And then we're going to want your 850 millibar wind shear. Where is this? It's not on here. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. Because usually, 850 wind speed heights. That's good enough, honestly. There you go. So here's your low-level jet. And there is indeed a low-level jet. For Wednesday, you can see your low-level jet is mainly screaming into parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and Nebraska. But out in front of the line where there's going to be some storms, I could fully anticipate that this area that they indicated in the 15, I might actually expand it a bit more to like this. This general vicinity right here could actually see some severe storms from Wednesday. Mainly because the low-level jet and the 500 millibar winds are kind of like staggering on top of each other. So that's not what I wanted. Hold up. There we go. Okay, perfect. So this is exactly what I wanted to see. So right in this area is where you can see some severe storms. It would probably be more of a gusty wind threat once you get like over here, because low-level jet and the jet stream will be almost exactly the same for wind, but some areas, let's see, some areas like right in here, I can anticipate a tornado threat right in here. So, but that's just me looking at the models right now based off of the GFS. Does the Euro agree? Does the Euro agree? It's at the 6Z. That's understandable. Where is Wednesday? There it is. So low-level jet, 21Z, and 500 millibars. Yep, right in that same box area is where I can see the maximized tornado threat. So if you live in those areas, you need to monitor this event very much so heavily as this continues to approach your area. And the reason why I say that is because this is the 500 millibar winds here. All right, I'm going to outline the wind direction right now. So I'll indicate it in different colors actually to make it easier. So let's see. Yellow is going to be 500 millibar winds. Actually, yellow is not a good idea. How about red? Red will be 500 millibar winds. This is your jet stream. There we go. So that's your 500 millibar winds. And let's go over to 850 millibar winds. And we'll outline this in black. So if we take a look at where it crosses over here, you can see that once you get over to here, this general vicinity, the winds are moving all in the same direction. You know, the low level jet and the jet stream, they're all moving in the same direction. But once you get to places like over here, the winds are not. So you can get some spin in the atmosphere with your directional shear, and you can enlarge your photographs to which could actually amplify tornadic activity. So right in this general vicinity right here is where I could anticipate some severe storms here on Wednesday. Like some tornadic activity, I should say. Let's go to pivotal weather here. And we're going to want to go ahead and start taking soundings. And I need to turn off my ad. I need to turn on my ad blocker. Resume blocking ads. Resume. Thank you. All right, let's go over to the supercell composite, see exactly what we're dealing with here from a technical standpoint. So a lot of people were wondering whether Tuesday was going to get severe weather. I mean, you could, but you have a lot of capping inversion at the moment, indicated in this CINH. This is the limiting factor that's in the atmosphere. There's a bit of a warm layer at 850 millibars. That's kind of just, preventing anything. But if you had like any sort of clouds that were to develop at 850 millibars or 1 kilometer in the sky, that could lower the temperature, which then you can get your thunderstorms to explode off of that. But as of right now, it doesn't exactly seem to be all too big, although your helicity is pretty massive, I will admit that. So, but as of right now, if we even click over Oklahoma, giant capping inversion right here. So Oklahoma probably won't get anything. If there were any place to get something, it would be like from this event on Tuesday. It would be near Nebraska, the Nebraska and Kansas border. Like Nebraska, there is probably a good chance near like Lincoln and Omaha that you guys are going to get some severe storms. They'd probably be towards the afternoon to evening hours, but you have a decent chance of them to get storms. The only issue with this is that in the beginning, the helicity lacks a lot to be desired. The photograph is still decent. Your lapse rates are still pretty good, though, and your cape is all right. So the only thing about it is that your helicity is meh, and that's because the photograph isn't as enlarged as you typically would want it to be. But still, there is some veering with these winds, and it easily could be something tornadic with this system. But once it starts to head into the overnight hours, it starts to get really capped, and that's when you can just call the event off. And then here's Wednesday. Wednesday is what I was talking about here. And I'm going to take a sounding out in front of it. And there is no capping whatsoever. Nothing. For the people that were in my class or my service class for how to read soundings, there's no capping whatsoever. The cape is above 2,000 joules per kilogram. The lapse rates are okay for the most part. Photographs are alright, although it's favoring an HP type mess because of how the upper parts of the photograph is representing itself. Your elliptic, your LCL, your LFC is smack dab together right next to each other, and so that is really interesting because that could favor tornadic potential here. This is something to really monitor as this heads closer and closer to Wednesday, because just by looking at these soundings, they may not be as good as the high risks in the past. I don't think this will be a high risk again for these areas, but they still look like they could produce some strong, severe thunderstorms, to which they could produce all the hazards across the board. And we'll actually get to that with our analog model in a bit. I want to take a sounding over here in Texas. Cape actually gets to almost 3,000 joules per kilogram in some spots, so that's something to keep in mind. The energy is here. Energy is 100% here. Wednesday evening. This is really interesting because there actually is some capping inversion on this sounding, but will that impact this thunderstorm development there just to the west of Shreveport? And if we continue to head further down, the capping inversion is still kind of there, but it's not really all too capped. There's still a bit of room to get past and explode that cap. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But this definitely is looking really interesting for Wednesday. I'll say that much. I do live stream all of the events. So if you want to stick around, watch me get the word out, and also you want to help me get the word out, stay tuned. Turn on notifications. I'll be live streaming these events most likely when they come about. But still, something to keep in mind that if you live in eastern Texas, western Louisiana, or actually western and northern Louisiana, or even just Louisiana in general, all the way up into Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, into Tennessee, you guys have the threat for severe weather on Wednesday. And then Thursday, this is the day that you all wanted to come in here for. And there actually is a pretty decent chance for this thing to be a decent little event. Not as much cape as people would particularly like it to be. It's almost 1,900 joules per kilogram cape in Tennessee. But then it just explodes all the way up to 3,000 joules per kilogram towards like the 5 o'clock hours, the 4 or 5 o'clock hours. So photographs are veering for the most part. It might be a little bit of an HP mess, but you guys might be able to see it photogenically. Actually, photogenically, you guys actually might be able to see it really well. You guys just won't see the bear's cage for the most part, which is good. If you stay south of these storms and you want to storm chase, you will be fine because these things will be moving across. But yeah, photograph veers off perfectly. Lapse rates are pretty good. They stay at 7. Helicity is over 200. So storm relative helicity from surface to 1 kilometer. As long as it stays over 200, you have the chance, or the decent chance, for tornadoes, in my honest opinion. No limiting factor here. Your cape, as I mentioned, is over 3,000 joules per kilogram, which is a lot. As I mentioned, you want over 2,000 to at least consider strong thunderstorms. So the fact that we have that is pretty strong right there. I'm going to take a sounding of some of these other areas. So southern Mississippi. Their sounding looks like this. They actually have more cape according to the sounding, but the helicity is not as strong. So it's kind of a gray area here. Do you want more cape and less wind shear, or do you want less wind shear, or do you want less cape and more wind shear? And in my honest opinion, right in the middle is where you'll find that threat, which in my honest opinion will most likely be southern Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia. Might reach all the way down to Birmingham, but I highly doubt it. I think it'll stay right around the Huntsville area. So right around in that general vicinity is where I can anticipate the strongest severe storms from this event as of right now. Just by me looking off of what the soundings say. Alrighty, last but not least, we are going to be talking about, let me get my drink out here, the SIPS analog guidance. Nice. Delicious. The SIPS run. We gotta take a look at the extended analogs here because we gotta be able to determine as to what all is happening. So, the chances for severe reports, this is from the 8th to the 11th. It's pretty high, honestly. There's a pretty good chance for some severe weather. The SIPS analog guidance is actually somewhat agreeing with me that northern Alabama and northern Georgia has a pretty high chance, a 60% chance of at least seeing one severe weather report. Um, Although the one thing that they are also saying is that there's a 60% chance of severe weather in southern Mississippi, and I'm actually kind of anticipating that to be a bit more of a hail threat. So would not be surprised with that. Let's go over to the tornado threat though and see what the maximized threat for tornadoes is. And indeed, look at that. This is exactly what the GEFS is agreeing with, that there's a higher threat for tornadoes in the northern part of Alabama, northern part of Mississippi, into places like Tennessee and northern Georgia. So something that we really need to monitor as this continues to move on through. That's most likely the area of a highest tornadic uh, development. So really something to monitor with that. Um, Now, one thing I want to take a look at real quickly. Um, Real quickly. I want to take a look at the severe threat for Wednesday real quickly, and this is the highest probability of any severe report. So apparently, there's going to be a lot of gusty wind reports in Illinois, but there is still some really interesting things to look for here. Places south of Joplin, north of Fort Smith, there is a strong chance for some severe weather report within there. There's also a good chance for some severe reports across Arkansas. That could be your tornado threat for the most part. All the way down into north of Tishomingo, right on the border of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. I want to take a look at the percentages for tornadoes, and apparently the GEFS actually says that there's going to be a very good chance of some tornadic development into places like Illinois. So I'm really curious actually as to why they say that. This is on Wednesday. So I'm going to take a sounding here. Okay, so the photograph actually looks pretty good, but it might be a bit more of a cold core setup, if you will. Maybe not really a cold core setup because it's actually relatively warm up there. Yeah, there you go. That's your photograph. So yeah, you could see some tornadic potential in Illinois as well. Mainly with the Skinny Cape and the pretty good photographs. You can get some weak tornadoes across the board with that. So good call, analog guidance there. The threat for severe weather in Illinois is it's there, it's present. But you also have the threat for tornadoes also into places like Texarkana, into Arkansas, as well as near the Mississippi River Valley, the intersection of the Mississippi River and the Ohio River. So something to keep in mind with that. Hail reports seems to be a lot more favorable into places like St. Louis and places south of Joplin, mainly because the lapse rates are relatively high in those areas. So not really all too surprised with that. Your wind reports most likely going to be around the St. Louis vicinity. That's where it will stagger. That will be a bit more linear as I showed in the models. So something to keep in mind with all that, that if it's a bit more linear, that's linear with the low-level jet move in the same direction, and the 500 millibar winds moving in the same direction. That will cause a linear mode for you. So, if you guys have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments. I'm willing to answer them, but for the most part, that's going to be pretty much it. We'll look over the chances of severe weather according to the CIPS and or the SIPS run, and you can see that there is a decent chance for severe weather. This is on the 7th, so severe weather is somewhat likely, but they're actually saying that there isn't really a huge chance for severe weather in Arkansas, which I kind of disagree with. So, these model runs aren't exactly, perfect. This one's actually an experimental one, which I somewhat agree with for the most part. But, we'll have to see as time goes along. So, If you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to like it, subscribe, share this with friends and family, and on social media. Follow me on social media, including my Twitch. Also, go join my Discord server. We have a movie night tonight. We're watching Twister. So if you want to go watch Twister with us, join the Discord. Link will be in the description down below. And yeah, that's going to be it. My name's Nate. I'll go by Hockey Boy Nate. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.